My worst fears for the Bengals came true on Monday Night Football, and with their upcoming schedule looking like how it does, I don't see how this gets any easier. So in this video, we're going to break down exactly what the front office should be thinking. How you doing, Bengals fans? John Sheeran here of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and Monday night was an opportunity for the Bengals. I didn't fully expect that they would use it to prove something else entirely. Because I will say, and I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to talk about the Zac Taylor era while it still exists, but I will say that one of the positives was that whenever this team found itself in the gutter, they quickly got out of that gutter. Not since the 2020 season, when that roster was completely abysmal, when Joe Burrow had already suffered his knee injury, not since the later part of that season have I seen this team just roll over and look completely incompetent in a 2-week stretch. Don't get me wrong, there have been embarrassing performances. There have been terrible losses that this team has taken, even with Joe Burrow healthy. But I haven't seen a 2-week span of this team looking this lifeless, this incompetent, this straight up bad in a long time. If you want to look at how long, it's really been 17 years since they've been blown out this bad in back-to-back weeks. That was during the 2008 season when Carson Palmer also went down with injury. Ryan Fitzpatrick ended up taking his place, and they were terrible that year. And based off of what they showed in Minnesota and what they showed last night in Denver, this team is terrible. Either they don't have the right players on the field, they don't have the right coaches on the sideline, or both are just terrible. But that's the thing, right? Even when we know that there are larger issues with this team in regards to coaching, regards to personnel, hell, regards to ownership, they've always been able to bounce back and even overachieve in some spots, especially in the biggest of stages like primetime. That's been another feather in Zac Taylor's cap. That was nowhere to be found on Monday night. That was nowhere to be found against the quarterback in Bo Nix, who has been statistically terrible against pressure, and he looked great out there. I said it last week. If there was a replication of what happened in Minnesota immediately following that game, that is when the fire Zac Taylor reactions really start to look valid here, because I don't know how much longer this can go on. When Jamar Chase is having open conversations with Taylor on the sideline after a terrible third down sequence, you start to take notice of stuff like that, because Jamar Chase is more than just an elite player. He cost a pretty penny for this organization. Joe Burrow cost a pretty penny for this organization. T. Higgins cost a pretty penny for this organization. There are hundreds of millions of dollars tied in to these players, all in the prime of their careers. How long does this ownership family watch those hundreds of million dollars go to waste because what they have in terms of infrastructure, in terms of coaching, in terms of surrounding talent isn't enough? I think at the very least, Taylor and his entire coaching staff have completely run out of words to say and excuses to bring up. Because it's one thing to get embarrassed and get blindsided and you put that behind you. It's another thing when that starts to stack. And right now, there is an absolute tower of terror stacking on Zac Taylor's desk, and he looks completely incapable of toppling it. The idea of Joe Burrow's injury giving him some sort of grace period, it just doesn't compute. This is the time when he's supposed to flex his head coaching muscles, and he has none. What happened on Monday night simply could not happen. And now it's up to the decision makers of this franchise to make the best decision moving forward. Whether it's moving on from him right now, thinking about the future after the season, whatever the case may be, it's looking very plain and simple. Because I can promise you, with the Lions and the Packers and the Steelers all up next on their schedule, I don't see how this gets any easier. So if you're still here, thank you. I really do mean that. If there's any sort of content, if there's any sort of direction that you want me to take this channel as we really do start to enter the deep pits of this season, please let me know. I want to make content that you guys want to continue coming back here and watch. That's my only goal. Just like Zac Taylor's only goal should be to coach better. We'll see if that happens.